Hi, this week we're going to talk about impromptu speaking. Impromptu speaking is when you have super limited amount of prep and then you go give a speech. So maybe you have 1 minute, maybe you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but you don't have multiple days. Normally, when you're asked to give an impromptu speech, it's very close to when you have to give the speech. And so you don't have a lot of time to do research. You don't usually have any time to do research. Most of your content comes straight from your head. And so if you know you're going to have to give an impromptu speech, you want to take all of the stuff out of your head and put it on paper, because when you're asked to give a speech, you become stressed and it's a lot harder to recall information. So if you have it all on a sheet of paper, then you can skim the paper and get ideas for your speech right before you have to give a speech. So you might say, like, I'll never have to give an impromptu speech, but impromptu speeches come up really often, and often they're not called speeches. So you may be asked, like I might be asked by the principal to go give a little class on how to work Canvas to other teachers. He wants me to do it at the end of the school day, and he wants me to take 30 minutes. Like, oh, wow, that's essentially a speech. So I need to prepare for it. Say the end of the school day is in like an hour. So I'm going to jot down ideas. I'm going to do bullet points out, and then I'm just going to go and do my best. And I'm going to speak off the top of my head or off the cuff and hopefully give some good information. The more small preparation you can do, the better your speech is going to be. So something you can do is you're going to create a personal knowledge index. A personal knowledge index, or a PKI, is where you take all of your knowledge and you put it on an index or like a piece of paper. Okay, so that's where all of your stuff lives. So on a personal knowledge index, you're going to have a lot of categories, and in those categories, you're going to have a bunch of examples. Because if you're asked to give a speech about why you love Mountain Home and you have like 5 minutes to prepare, you already have stuff written down. You can skim it, get those ideas again, jot them down on bullet points, and then your speech is going to go a lot more smoothly. So we take all of this stuff out of our heads. So we're going to make some categories. So go ahead and get a sheet of paper. If you need to pause this video, do that. But we're going to make a personal knowledge index. So title it Personal Knowledge Index, or PKI, at the top, and get something to write within a piece of paper. Okay, so we're all going to make categories together. So start by drawing a line down the middle of your paper so that you have 2 columns. Each one of these columns is going to have multiple categories. So let's make our first category TV shows. Let's write that down. And you're going to write down all of the TV shows you can think of that you can talk about for at least 45 seconds. And you could share stories from the TV shows or themes from the TV shows if you were to be asked to give a speech. So I say for 45 seconds or longer, because if you can't talk about something for 45 seconds or longer, probably don't have a good enough understanding of the show or thing that you're discussing. And so you probably shouldn't use that. So you're going to write down any TV show you could talk about for 45 seconds or longer. I always, on my PKI, have Gilmore Girls written down, and I'm writing it down right now, because I've watched Gilmore Girls like way too many times. I've seen the whole season or the whole series multiple times. So if I had to give a speech, I could use an example from Gilmore Girls, because I can think of specific episodes to probably fit any situation that I were to speak for. I also might write like Grey's Anatomy, Smash. I just finished a show called Smash. This Is Us. Any other shows. So I'm going to fill in my category right now while you do the same. So any TV show you could talk about for at least 45 seconds. And you want at least 5 things in your category. It can be kids shows, adult shows, any of the sort. Okay, So you should have at least 5 things. I have Gilmore Girls, Grey's Anatomy, Smash, This Is Us, Station 19, Supernatural, and The Rookie. So underneath my category, I'm going to leave a little bit of space in case I think of more things, and I'm going to draw a line. That's what mine looks like so far. Okay, your next category is going to be movies. Any movie you could talk about for at least 45 seconds or longer. Again, adult movies, teenager movies, children's movies, Disney movies, anything you could talk about for at least 45 seconds. At least 5 things. Go ahead and write. Okay, and again, leave space and then draw a line. Your PKI is not supposed to all be complete today. Well, you want 5 things in each category, but you should be going back to this probably at least once a week and adding more stuff, okay? So in my movies category, I have Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Raise Your Voice, Howard, Mulan, both Mulan movies, and The Notebook. And I've left plenty of space so I can write a lot more stuff in any of the spaces. Okay, your next category is going to be books. Books you've read for fun, books you've read for school, books you've read to your siblings. Any book. It could be a graphic novel, a comic book. So write down any books. Think of any book you've read in a class. If you could talk about it for 45 seconds, write it down. New books you've read for fun. And leave space. Next category. So I commute to work every day. So I drive a lot. And so I listen to audiobooks this year. So I've read a lot of books this year, and it's really I've really enjoyed my time. So some of the books I've read this year that I wrote down: Talking with Strangers, With the Fire on High, On the Come Up, Becoming, and Dear Martin. I also wrote down a couple other books that I've read in the past: The Hate You Give, Warriors Don't Cry, and Outliers. And then I left the space. Okay, the next category is you're going to choose. So you want to choose things that you're interested in and you know a lot about, and things that have stories attached. So if I did a sports category, I'm not just going to write down all the sports teams I can think of. You might write down a sports team that you know, like how the coach got chosen, or like why they traded certain players, or like controversies surrounding a team, or like really in-depth historical knowledge about the teams. You wouldn't just say like, I know that the Packers are a football team. Okay. I can list all the parts of a car. You want to have stories attached to it. You want to be able to use these examples to relate to your audience. So let's see, you could do musicals. That's usually one of my categories. You could do songs if you know the meaning behind songs, why songs are written. You could do bands or artists if you know stories attached to them. You could do poetry. You could do sports stories. You could do one on athletes. I on my last PKI, I made an athletes category, and I realized they were all gymnastics athletes. So I had like a gymnasts category because I know a lot of stories related to gymnasts. You could do a historical events category. You could do a famous people in history, famous people today. You could do a pop culture category. So I'd like you to choose 3 categories from any of the ones I listed or any ones you can think of, and you're going to put 5 things in each of those categories. So I'm going to take a few seconds and do mine while you do yours as well. Podcast, maybe that could be a category. You're doing all 3 categories right now. All right. So I have 3 more categories. I have musicals, I have gymnasts, and I have artists, like musical artists. I also did a podcast category because I thought of those as well. So all of these things on my categories, I know I can talk about for at least 45 seconds. Maggie Nichols, she's a gymnast. She did not make the 2016 Olympic team, even though she was expected to be in the top third. She placed high at the Olympic trials, but she came forward about some sexual abuse by a doctor, a gymnastics doctor, and so she kind of got blackballed from the Olympics. She was also the subject of a documentary recently called Athlete A, so I added that in my movies category as well. I could talk about Carole King and her life, how she got started as a songwriter, how she became the actual artist that was singing the songs, how she wrote some really popular songs for some really, really popular artists like Aretha Franklin and Lil Eva and the Monkees. And I could also reference the musical made about her life called Beautiful, a Carole King musical. So I wrote that in my musical category. I could also talk about the Believed podcast related to Maggie Nichols's situation because it deals with that issue as well. So this is what my PKI currently looks like. There's space for other categories here and on the back. There's space to add stuff in, but your PKI should have at least 5 or You should have 6 categories at least 5 things in each category. Again, you had TV shows, movies, and books. If you couldn't fill those with 5 things, then make another category to replace that or to have in addition to. So you're going to take a picture of this and upload it in the next assignment. And then we're going to use these to give an impromptu speech.